Hey everyone, welcome to the 11th episode of the DevConnect show. Today, our guest is from Awning, Denmark. He is a senior consultant at Delegate. He is very passionate about technology and loves outdoor life. Today, he is here to talk about his new tool called PCF Reloader Transformation. So, please welcome Morten Holt. Hey Morten, welcome to the DevConnect show.
Hi, Dinesh, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, you might not know this, but you are the first guest for 2022 on the DevConnect show.
Oh, that's quite the honor.
Yeah, and you are actually demoing on something that is very close to my heart, as you might have known, right? The topic that you are going to showcase today
Yeah,
is very close to my heart, so I'm really excited. You know what? I want to see this.
I hope I can give you something useful then. At least, don't make you sad from the demo.
Oh no, definitely not. I'm really excited. But before we talk about your tool and everything, you mentioned that you like outdoor activities. So what kind of outdoor activities do you like?
Uh, well, I've been a scout for something like 25 years. So anything related to that, and just being outside generally, going camping,
Ah,
the
okay.
fresh air and rain
So you
sometimes.
do it, you do all the like hooking up the tents, building the tents and all those kind of things, or you just go with the where tents are built or where you have campgrounds already built, or you just look for places like deep in the wilderness and then
I,
do the camping there.
it's not so deep in the wilderness. I'm from Denmark. We don't have a lot of wilderness to go in, but it's mostly farms. So,
Ah,
but I can raise a tent. I have a, what would you call that? A tent on a trailer. I've no idea what you would
mm-hmm.
call that in English. It's called a
RV?
combi camp. No,
Yeah.
it's like a trailer that you fold out and then you have a tent. You can sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't do those things. I mean, I'm
No.
I'm more outdoorish, but camping I normally go with the tents.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I only know RVs are there. That's a thing.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm not aware of any other. But yeah, good to know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So how did you? So talking about like work thing, talking
Mhm.
about Power Platform. When did you start working with Power Platform, or even before CR? Like, did you start with CRM? Did you start with Power Platform? And how did your journey actually started?
So I started with the CRM, and my first steps into CRM is perhaps back in 2015, 2016, when I was working at another consultancy company. Then I had a slight detour into some internal programming for a company, but now I'm back at this consultancy, where we work with basically all of the Microsoft platforms. So Power Platform, but also Office 365 and Azure
Mm-hmm.
solutions.
Okay.
And I've been focused on the Power Platform on CRM for about 3 years now, working here.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
mostly, it started as CRM, and then as Microsoft has sort of branched out and
Right.
done this whole moving everything into the same, and extended all the capabilities, I've kind of followed their flow, followed the lead.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
That's everyone's story, right? And whoever has worked with CRM has naturally progressed into this Power Platform journey. So, what made you come up with this idea of this creating a PCF transformer tool?
So I've been working for about a year at a client. and was doing increasingly lot of PCF development. I have to say, I'm a huge fan. I like programming. Basically, I like. I get the point in the whole low code, no code movement, but I, as a programmer at heart, I like coding, and I like the idea that I can write these first party components that I could get injected into CRM. So I've been working on that for a client for a while, and it was growing into an increasingly complex component with multiple views and interactions and data sources and all of this, and was growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of testing and debugging that's built into the platform. So as you know, we have the test harness, which is great for doing mockups and having this whole live feedback of the design, but breaks down the moment you need data, basically, other than what you can write to it. And the alternative is getting it injected onto the page, or getting the PCF onto a form and having to reload that. And I was getting frustrated with how long that whole feedback loop takes when you're working like that. So started looking for a solution for that. We've been using Fiddler to do the code injection onto the form, so you can do something. And I see that Microsoft has extended their documentation at some point to actually tell you how to do that. But I really like the live reload idea from the test harness. So that's kind of where the idea came up, that I thought it has to be possible. And I played around with the idea of doing it as a browser extension, for example. But then noticed that basically the test harness does something, quote unquote, something to do this live reload, and figured that it should be able to hook into that. Yeah. So some long nights, and then then it worked.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So then I wanna now see what this tool is all about and how you can actually do live reload. And I get the point where I hear you loud and clear, because I keep on developing PCF controls a lot, right? So that feedback loop is too much, right? So I'm gonna see what live reload looks like. So all yours. Whenever you're ready, screen share.
I will share. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Yep, I am.
So what I have here is a very small PCF component. It's not very interesting, but it's more or less the default out-of-the-box experience. The only thing I've done basically here is add 3 lines of code to populate our container. So I'm creating a div, writing hello, whatever is in the input parameter, and putting that into the container. And I actually have a trial environment here, and it's the very, very nice text here in the account number field, because that is one thing that I sometimes wish I could do on PCFs, is inject them into the form without having to attach them to a field, but that's for a different time. So we have a PCF here that writes out hello reload, and it's currently hooked up through Fiddler to use the bundle from my machine. And I don't know if you want to see that, but it's documented in Microsoft documentation how you could set up that reloading.
Yeah, I can post that in the video description, what that link looks like, and the documentation for Microsoft.
It is also on my GitHub, which we can get back to in a moment. So if we set up the test harness here, so we'll just start that, and it should compile and start up. And I've noticed one of the important details here is including the watch flag for the for the start, because otherwise it won't actually watch your code. It will do live reloading, but I have no idea what it would take to reload it because it's not actually watching your compiles. So we see now that the browser sync has started up, and this might be slightly different depending on your version of the PCF library, because this was actually updated around a week ago to the newest version, where they've switched from using a live server to using browser sync. And that's not something that actually matters to 99% of people, but it did matter to me because it changed the entire way the system had to function. So they've changed the communication protocol. But browser sync has started up, and if we load the test harness here, we can see we have our component here, and we go in and change something. Next, it will pick it up, and in a moment it will reload this and write goodbye instead. This is the default behavior. This is what we've seen. But over here we will notice that this hasn't changed until I reload the page, and we have to do that. So that's kind of the default out-of-the-box experience. If we shut down this and then fetch the tool that I've made with the very nice name PCF Reloader, it should probably have another one, but now it's an NPM, so that makes it harder to change naming. We can install that. So install development loader.
So one thing to note here is it needs to be only a dev dependency, correct?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a application dependency. So make sure whoever is installing this, make sure that there is -d in the npm install command.
Yes, exactly that. Or I think --save dev is also an alias for that. But yes, it's not a runtime dependency. It's something you will only want to have running on your development machine. Other than my tool, I've installed another tool called TS Patch, which is needed for the tool to function. It's what I'm doing is hooking into the TypeScript compiler, and the TypeScript compiler has a publicly available API for doing stuff, but the default TSC compiler is not actually calling this API. So that's meant for building your own small TypeScript-based compilers, transformers that you run for some need. But the TS Patch package is a package that will then expose these or will make the TS compiler call the APIs during compilation. So that means it will hook in.
Yeah, but why wasn't it added as a dependency in your PCF Reloader transformer itself? If you would have added that as a dependency, then the npm would have loaded it just by loading your package, right?
That is completely true, and I actually don't remember if I added as a specific dependency. But that is an excellent point. We can but
yeah, it would save time because sometimes people might just install PCF Reloader transformer and then forget to include TS Patch, and then now they would be getting errors, right? So it would make things easier for developers to just install your tool and then just be with it. So even if anything you change in behind the scene would not affect the dev experience.
That is an excellent point, and I should probably also run this command on the post install feed of the package, because we actually have to patch the TypeScript compiler. So what I've had installed was the out-of-the-box TypeScript. So this PCF has a dependency on TypeScript.
Correct.
And it will compile using the TypeScript from node modules. So TS Patch has now updated that installed version. So it's important to note that it is only the TypeScript compiler in this project that will get touched. So we are not actually doing anything to anything else, and you can backtrack if you just ts patch u, I believe, to uninstall ts patch, or just reinstall TypeScript in the project through npm. So it's very easy to roll back.
But then what if sometimes I've seen people actually installing TypeScript globally and not part of the package, right? So what happens during that time?
I believe ts patch can also install into the global TypeScript compiler if you want that.
So that has to be installed globally and then patched globally.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is not usually how I do it, because I do like that I can have different versions of TypeScript depending on the project. Some clients might have a dependency on an older version or something if you're running it through CI.
Right. Yeah. That's what that's how even I do it. It's easier to just manage the TypeScript versioning, because sometimes you might have PCFs that are like 3-4 months old, or even packages, node packages that are 3-4 months old, 1 year old, using different TypeScript. Now you upgrade it, and sometimes things break and you don't want to break them, so you still want to use the old TypeScript version and then keep supporting that packages. So until you are ready for upgrading it.
I have also run into issues where Visual Studio Code, for example, will use the global TypeScript compiler, and that will be incompatible with some sort of functionality. So you actually have to tell VS Code to use the Node modules one. I believe that for path rewriting, for example, that can be an issue. I think that's where I saw it. So now we've patched and we've installed the plugin, and we have to enable it. So I've opened tsconfig, and I see that I've actually already added this. So I've added this block. So the plugins is telling ts patch to include these, or to telling the TypeScript compiler to include these, so you can have multiple transformations. We have a reference to this tool. The type is the type of transformation, so that will always be the value config. Then we have verbose, that is a flag for the transformer. It's by default it's off, but I've left it. I've placed it on for now. And the print generated is also default false, but will allow us to see the TypeScript code that's actually getting generated. So now if we start up our runner again, we should see it picking up the file. So now it's compiling. And yes, so it says here that it found the class transformer demo. Scroll up a bit again. Yes, go away, Chrome. It found the file, and it generated a new file called index.generated.ts. This is from the print generated command, so that's not something that you will have lying around usually. For some reason, the compiler runs through it 2 times, but it's a small operation, so that shouldn't be an issue. And now, if we go over here, so we still have the sandbox running. It's here. But if we bring up the development tools and reload the page, so we'll get the new bundle from the local version in just a second. So you do have to do this the first time you load it. We should get a message once the PCF has been initialized. Yeah, so it says here, PCF Reloader, live reload enabled. And it says...
I can see that.
Yeah, and it says the browser sync has been connected. So if we now go over here to our code, change this from goodbye back to hello, change the default text, hello-ish.
Yeah.
Save, and there you go.
Boo! So, that was quick.
Yeah, and it's also over here. It's also been changed. So we can see that we got the message here at 495 milliseconds, and at 709 we've been reconnected to browser sync after the reload. So that is a lot quicker than doing the form reloading.
Yeah, definitely. And then again caching issues and whatnot. So you have to
Yes.
like do a hard refresh, and just it's annoying sometimes, right? So
Yes.
with this, I mean, it's very smooth, I must say.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
I'm still running. I'm running Fiddler to do the actual injection, and I do have to do the cache disabling on Fiddler, and sometimes that can be, but that's something that's not something that's under my control, basically.
Right.
We do need to get it into the browser somehow, and we do also need to get the first publish of the PCF onto the environment to get it onto the form. If
Right.
somebody can come
Yeah.
up with a way of modifying the form without doing actual work on the environment, I would be very interested. But I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you still have to do everything that you do for connecting
Mhm.
your environment with the local files, right, through Fiddler. You still have to
Yes,
do that setup. So normally when you do all this debugging, you still have to do all of that. But then where this tool is improves is whenever you do any changes in the code, you don't have to rebuild it again, because
no,
rebuilding it again takes about like a minute, 2 minute, and then again you have to go on the form and reload the form, which again takes a minute or 2 minutes. So
yeah,
4 minutes per code
per change,
changes
yeah,
per change, right? So now you're saving that to what, 300 milliseconds?
yeah.
That's like enormous
Pl-
amount of performance improvement, even from the development standpoint, right?
Yeah, that's a slight. It takes a bit for it to pick up the file change and do the compile, but again, that's the framework we have to work with. That's actually doing that file watching. So
Right.
from but yeah, it is. I've been very happy, and now this is a very simple. This is just a div in a container. But what I've been working on has been a complete replacement of the form, basically with the based on a view and getting external data and all of this, and it's still very, very fast. So if you've navigated around in your PCF, we don't save the state. We can't save the React state, but we are doing. It's calling the destroy function. So it does a nice teardown of your PCF if you do the teardown right in the destroy, as you should,
Right.
and then does a reload and re-injects the context. So we can actually, if you want, we can actually see what we built. So this is, as mentioned, the generated file, and this is the same as this file. The spacing might be slightly different because it's been through the TypeScript compiler, and Lint is very upset about the indentation, but it will have to live with that. So what has happened is that we have injected an import statement. So I'm the previous version, we actually injected all the code in TypeScript, but after moving to browser sync, it was easier to do that in a library. So it will inject this import statement.
Okay. But
The next
then,
line,
once when you talk about you have changed your tool to browser sync,
Mhm.
but then the initial one was live reload.
Yes,
So would your tool still support the previous version, or whoever is not updated their
yes,
pack CLI, it would still work?
yes. It is backwards
Okay.
compatible with the old tool. You do have to add a setting to the configuration.
Okay.
So that is
What
mentioned.
would that setting be?
That is in here. So I have all the configuration flags here. So basically, we've seen the first two. Then we have the use browser sync, which is by default true. So you'd have to set that to false, and that is actually it for running it on the previous version.
Okay.
You can specify the WebSocket address. That
Okay.
I don't think that should ever be needed, but I don't know if they at some point would decide to change which port they're listening on or something weird. So I've exposed that as an option as well.
Sometimes,
Uh,
I've seen that if you're running two PCFs, the
mhm.
port does change. So do
Yeah,
you account for that?
not automatically. No,
So at
it
that
will
time,
have.
then we'll have to use VS address then.
Yes, so you will have to
Okay.
set the VS address in the tsconfig file.
Okay.
Um, and that will either be the WebSocket address or the browser sync address, and these are the two default values that we're using depending on the value of use browser sync.
So if it is true, then you would use HTTP
The
localhost for browser
Yes,
sync, and if it is browser sync is false, then you would
yeah,
use the WebSocket one, which is
yes,
actually specifying the LAN address with the port number.
yeah. So that is a direct WebSocket connection
Correct.
to the previous one.
Right.
The,
Okay.
the the newer version uses browser sync, which uses socket IO underneath. So I'm hooking into the socket IO connection and ignoring 99% of what browser sync is trying to do, because that does synchronization of text input and scroll events and all of this. And that's not supported for now, at least. If that's something that people would have an interest in, then I guess it could be looked into, but it's not something I've needed yet.
So,
To
so what do you mean by not supported? Like text files in the sense?
No, if I open this sandbox, this is running using browser sync. So if I have
Correct.
this in two different instances, there and you over there. So if I change this value, we'll notice that it changes over here
Oh,
as
I
well.
see. Okay.
It doesn't actually update, so I'm thinking they're not fully supporting it anyway. But that's a browser sync feature. It will also, if you scroll on one window, it will scroll in the other one. You can change the values of drop downs and all of this. So I'm not hooking into that part of the functionality. I'm only listening for the reload events,
Right, and
which
I
happen
don't
on
think
compile.
so. Yeah, and I don't think so that would be necessary because
No,
I don't see any um, any any issues with not implementing
no.
that because we are working in the app itself, right, and not
Mhm.
working in the test harness. So
Yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah.
and there's really we couldn't output stuff in a reliable way. You could have perhaps two forms that you're running at the same time, but I don't think we could get a reliable system up
Yeah.
running anyway. So for now, it's just hooking into the reload events, and it is so we've injected this import. The next line is also, and then we are injecting into the constructor a call into the library, which actually it sets up the library. In the init, we do a connect call. In update view, we store the current context that gets passed as a parameter to that. So you'll see that the rest of the code is the same as before. I've just injected the first line here. And then these last two lines. So we're checking when the bundle is loaded onto the page. We're checking if we're actually already initialized, and if we are, we will construct the class that the component is implemented in.
Okay. And then how does it work with React? Like if you have installed React and working with Fluent UI controls and
Mhm.
React controls and or even if like any other libraries, can can the reload still happen even
Yes.
if the changes are maybe in one of the React component?
Yeah. That will still reload. So basically, anytime the test harness would do a reload, we would do a reload as well.
Okay.
And the watcher, as from what I've seen so far, picks up changes to React components as well. I use Fluent UI in anywhere I can, basically to build these components. If you just need this text box, then sure, that looks fine because that just hooks into the default styling. But the moment you need something more advanced, I really feel like you should use Fluent UI to get something that fits with the whole UI experience.
Right. Yeah. That's what my thought process is as well. Like
Yeah,
use React, Fluent UI whenever you're building controls
yeah,
for
exactly.
yeah.
And you already downloaded all of Fluent UI to build the test harness, because I noticed that they are pulling most of the dependencies just for that.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's not even a download.
Yeah, I've seen that, but we had to change it because it blows up the packet size.
Ah,
So So we had to change it and then make sure that we are only pulling things that we really need from Fluent UI.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that.
But anyway, that's a separate topic. So
Yes.
don't want to get diverted. But yeah, this was really great. So now one of few questions that I have is how can people download it? So you have already shown that.
Hmm.
So if you can just reiterate how people can download it, configure it.
Yeah.
If you can just show that one more time.
Yeah. So it's as mentioned, it's available on npm. So you can install it by running npm install as a dev dependency PCF Reloader Transformer, and that is it
Okay.
for installation. I will see if we can avoid having to manually install TS patch. That's actually interesting, but I can get back to you on that if you want. Then there's an install or a configuration in tsconfig. So the tsconfig JSON file. This is a very bare bones one. I believe it's basically one that comes out of the box from Power Apps. So I've added plugins with the reference, the type. These are hard-coded values. They should always be this for this transformation. And basically these two you can remove. And that is it. So that's the required configuration. I've also added an exclude tag to the compiler here because I'm generating the generated TS file, and I don't want to compile that as well. The tool will actually ignore it. I have a check for whether we've already patched a file. So I won't regenerate the code on top of the already generated code. But the component bundler will be confused that you have two classes with the same class name. So it won't actually work if you do it. So if you're playing around with printing the generated file, I would include an exclude statement for the TypeScript compiler. And it's all documented both on npm and on GitHub, which is linked from npm. And apparently is not loading. Okay, that was weird. But there's the same README file, obviously, but also you have all the code. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you can go back into your code file in VS
Yeah.
Code. So when you generate index.generated.ts, we don't necessarily have to check in that file in the source control, right?
No,
We can
no,
exclude
no.
that from the check-ins.
Yes.
Correct? Because anytime if anyone else downloads the package, like other developer, and he has not used PCF Reloader Transformer before, even if he tries to do that, it would automatically just regenerate the file again for him.
Yes, exactly. So it's generated on each compile. We run through, detect any class files that implement component framework.standard control, and do an injection in that if it's not already been done.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
And then now
so it is meant as a purely developer tool.
Right.
Basically.
Yep. Yep. Cool. So thanks for showing us how to download it, how to configure it. Now, if anyone has any issues with it, or if they want to, like how I on this call proposed an enhancement to the tool, if anyone else has to provide those kind of enhancements, how they can do it?
Well, first of all, the easiest solution, of course, is to create an issue on GitHub. It's available on there. It's MIT licensed for now because I've figured that was the easiest if I want to open source anything that I can have to use commercially as well. So feel free to do that, or shoot me an email as well.
Okay. Yeah. So GitHub is the method of first preference is GitHub. Create an issue if it's a bug. Create a feature request if it is an enhancement.
Yes.
There you go, guys.
That would be perfect.
Yeah. Well, it was nice having you, Morten, on the show. and I really loved what you have done. I mean, now we have three PCF controls that we are building. So probably I'll start using this on those controls, help my developers get onboarded on this PCF Reloader transformer, and then yeah, probably give you some insights into how it's performing, and
That
start
would
working with
be
it.
that would be amazing. I would love to get some feedback on, even if you're telling me that something is completely broken and it doesn't work. That is also very valuable.
Yeah.
Uh, it in I've heard people asking if it would work for components embedded in Canvas apps, and the answer is I don't know. So that would also be a very interesting path to take. But I haven't played around with the Canvas app PCF integration.
Yeah,
So
I mean we have not done that either. It's
no,
mostly model-driven apps, right? But yeah, that would be interesting to see how it works on the Canvas apps as well.
yeah,
But one more thing is, I'm also I I'm gonna check this out how it works, but I might also include this in the PCF Builder VS Code extension that I have. So maybe it's just a button click, and then all the config and everything just gets installed automatically. Like PCF Reloader transformer will get installed, TS patch will get installed, and even the config will get installed. So people won't have to worry about all that configuration. So I'll look into that as well, an
that would
enhancement
be
for my tool.
that would be amazing. I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for being on the show. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, yeah, cool. Well, take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.
So, guys, if you're working with PCF, I highly recommend installing this new package. This would improve your debugging process by reducing the turnaround time that you need. So, you can do all those UI changes you always wanted to. The link to the package is in the video's description and the GitHub repository as well. So go and download the tool today. Until next time.